So, welcome to Cardinal Control Room, episode 7. We're going to go and take a deep dive into the world of freelance today. We have Adam Allen, Katie Harmon, and Nicole Wilson here with us today. So, if you guys want to go ahead and just introduce yourselves, and then we'll get started.
Hi, I'm Adam K. Allen, class of 2016. I am the lead producer at Fierce Little Bird Productions. We're an Emmy-nominated production company located in Indianapolis, Indiana, providing services to companies across all varieties of industries in the Midwest and beyond.
I'm Nicole Wilson. I am a freelance producer, stage manager, and project manager in Seattle, Washington. I've only been doing this for 3 years so far, freelance-wise, so I'm a little bit new, but happy to talk about it.
And I'm Katie Harmon. I am whatever title I want to be because it's just me. I live in Colorado. I'm in the Vail Valley, and I have been freelancing for just over 10 years now, about 10 and a half, full time. So I have been doing it in Colorado the entire time. And it's typically just me. So I guess you could call it producer slash scriptwriter slash filmmaker slash photographer because I also loop photo into my business.
Perfect. So,
Nice.
a couple of multi-hyphenate type people in here.
Yes.
So, let's go ahead and talk about how you get the start in the freelance world. So, Adam, if you want to go first, and then we'll kind of just go through everybody again.
Sure. I mean, for me, with getting started in freelancing, I got some really great advice actually from a producer based out in LA. His name's Brian Nitzkin. Great guy. He actually sat on the phone with me for over an hour when I was first starting to freelance, and starting my production company that I do all my freelancing through. He gave me the advice of you need to find a niche. And when he was saying that, he didn't mean, what is your niche specialization necessarily, but more so what's a niche market you can find that you have a connection to that can help get you started. Um, and for me, that was theater and performing arts because I'm also an actor, so I had a lot of connections within the theater circuit around indie. Um, and then from there, it just kind of snowballed from doing stuff for independent artists and various theater groups, making asks that elevated clients from to larger nonprofits that eventually then went into large scale corporate clients. Um, so yeah, I mean, for me, getting started was all about who do you know to help get things started.
All right, I'll go next. I came into freelance kind of in a weird way, but I was full-time at a production company out here. Um, and it got to be just too much. And I mean, I'm sure everybody who produces will know you can get run into the ground if you're not careful. So it got to be too much, and a bunch of people were telling me, you're underpaid, you're working too much, you should go freelance. And I was like, well, I can't stay here anymore, so might as well try it. Um, and so I quit that job. I had a lot of people in my life who were helping me get positions. So that's another thing that's super, super important with this freelance gig is that networking is everything. It's absolutely everything. Um, you get jobs because people refer you. Um, so meet people. That's all I gotta say. So
Yeah, I can definitely play off of that as well, the referral based. We live in a super small town out here, so if you don't have a good reputation, you are SOL here, and because it's all referral basis. I do no marketing. I got into freelance. Like I said, I graduated in 2012. I went to Texas for a brief stint, and worked for the PGA, Professional Golfers Association, doing web, multimedia, video, photo, overworked, underpaid, 70-hour weeks. was 22 though. Who cares? Like it was fine, right? And then just really quickly realized I wanted a different quality of life. But in college, before I went down the sports link route and kind of changed career paths from sports. But when I started in sports, I met this guy named Scott Swim, who many of you have probably heard the name of that would be listening to this. But Scott is an older than me graduate and came in and spoke to our class at one point. I didn't know what the word freelance meant. And I was immediately intrigued. I think at the time he said he was home 12 weeks out of the year. So I guess that meant he was traveling 40, something like that. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And he's sitting in an ESPN graphics truck and that's his one job and he's traveling all over the world to do it. So I was immediately intrigued by that. And I think I was a sophomore. And then Chris Taylor from SportsLink introduced me to this E60 producer and that producer. And then I got back on okay, I think I want to work for a production company. And when I didn't like that style of work in Texas, and it was, like you said, overworked and underpaid, and everybody's willing to do it. So they didn't care if you stayed or went.
Yeah.
We moved to Colorado for a change in quality of life from Dallas, Texas. And I had nothing to lose. So yeah, I just kind of went for it and had some connections from Indiana and Texas that started me off. And now I don't have to travel at all. All my connections are local for work. So yeah, can relate to both of those comments.
That's awesome.
What would you say to somebody that's looking into networking? Where can they go? Who should they reach out to help them get their foot in the door in different places if they feel like they don't really know anybody to start off with?
I can take this one. So how I got to Seattle was I was working in Indianapolis, quit that job, didn't have anybody I knew in Seattle, moved to Seattle. Everybody said it was a little silly, but I needed a change. So that's what I did. And I just sort of started going to different networking events that were like not necessarily for production, but for things I was interested in. And so I just started talking to people while I was there. Eventually, you'll find the person that you actually need to know. And then there are so many people out there just willing to help. And so I met this one person. 2 minutes later, they were like, here, meet this person because they're here. And so I met that guy and then we had coffee. He introduced me to some other guy. We had coffee. And then that guy introduced me to some other guy who worked at a production company. And I had to PA first for them. And then they saw what I was capable of. And they were like, do you want an AP? And then I said, yes, I will. And worked my way up to producer. And now I'm doing senior producer level work. Yeah.
In addition to the networking, something that helped me tremendously because I had no network in Colorado, similar to you, I got a part-time job, partially because I was freaking out about income and what that was going to look like. I was also willing to do weddings, which some of us might consider a low point. Some of us might consider that dream job, but I was willing to do weddings and network with weddings, and I live in a wedding destination area, so that helped too. Alongside a part-time job, I was a bar instructor at a fitness studio. That wasn't a cheap place to work out, and so the clientele there had money to spend, and those are actually a couple of my biggest clients today are clients from that workout studio where I no longer teach because I no longer have time. But that's where a couple of them came from, and I still have. It's just from standing at a desk and greeting people, and I think being reliable and showing up to teach a class on time spoke wonders. So
yeah, I think kind of going off what Katie, you were just saying about, it was people you met during one of your part-time jobs. If you're moving to an area you're not familiar with or an area that you're not originally from, get involved with the local group if it's something that's part of a hobby, because you're going to start meeting people where you already have a connection, you have a similar interest, and from there you can start discussing, hey, I'm doing this or looking to get into this. You make the ask to see if anybody's looking for it, or maybe to have a connection. I actually got connected with the Carmel Chris Kendall Marked. They're one of my recurring clients because I was doing video work through Booth Tarkington Civic Theater, who I started doing video work with because I was doing a show. So just did a show, got in contact with the marketing manager, started doing stuff for them, made an ask of the marketing manager, got connected to the Christmas market, so on and so forth. Yeah, just kind of getting connected, but also for any current students who are watching this, get to know the other students sitting next to you, as cliche as that is, because there will be times where you're looking for a job and the person sitting next to you has an opening, and vice versa. They'll be looking for a job, you may have an opening. That happened with me when I first started out. I was trying to figure out how much to charge for editing. Talked to a classmate, former roommate, who is now my best friend. Started editing for him, and we've been working together back and forth now for 7 years.
I also want to jump off of what Katie was saying earlier. Be willing to do the job you're overqualified for, or that nobody wants to do. Like I said, when I got my AP job, they had me PA first. I was way overqualified to PA. I had been doing this work for 4 years at that point. But that was what they wanted me to do so that they could see my work ethic and just see how they worked with me. Because that's another thing. You really need to be likable in production. Especially these days. I mean, there is the old guard. I work with them still. And every once in a while they'll call me sweetie, and I'm like, I've been doing this for 10 years, but okay. But these days it's really, really important to be likable, and have a good attitude. Have a really good attitude no matter what you're doing. Because that's also, yeah, no, show up on time for sure. Actually, show up a little early.
If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're fired.
Yeah.
Piggybacking off of be likable, there are definitely jobs that are awful. Don't complain on set. Wait until you're home to complain.
Yeah, for sure.
I was on a 26-hour shoot one time, and this art director was like, okay, so I'll see you in a couple hours. And I said, sure. And I got home and I told the person that helped me get that job in the first place that I will not be coming back the next day. It was supposed to be a 14-hour day. I ended up going and getting her car washed for like $300. It was some kind of like insane detail. And then I came back and picked up a perfume that she wanted exchanged. So I took that to a mall and exchanged that. It went from being like a set of hands helping with an art setup to being a personal assistant for the day. And it was super fun. But 27 hours later, it was not that much fun.
That's
but
insane.
Like you were saying, you complain about, you swallow it, and then you go home and you complain about it at home. The other thing about networking, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Ball State actually has a lot of groups in different areas. So we have Ball State in LA, we have Ball State, Colorado, we have Ball State, like everywhere everybody's from in this chat. Tonight, there's a Ball State chapter in those areas. So it's always nice to get on like Facebook and things like that and just see if there's one in your area, and see what kind of get-togethers they're having, or just reach out to people that are in those and then send messages those way too, their way. Because you never know what could happen that way. And then, yes, like Nicole was saying, starting off as a PA, I don't think a lot of people understand that when you are doing freelance work or you're trying to get your start, you don't get to start off as the director or the director of photography or
Yeah.
any kind of those heads of departments unless it's your project that you're doing. And just knowing that if you can work your way through it and kind of prove yourself and get your foot in the door, and then, work the rest of your body in through that door and then up the stairs to the next level and then up the stairs to the next level. That's kind of how that works. So I'm glad that we've kind of talked about that, because it kind of opens the eyes of students that might be watching this that might think, and it's awesome to have that dream, and it will happen at some point, hopefully. But you're going to have to start kind of down here, which is nice because you might think that you want to go the director route, and you might meet somebody in the art department and you find out that you want to go that way, or you find somebody in lighting and want to go that way. So yeah, just taking that, some of you guys said the weird job, but taking that more entry level position when you're in a new place is always, in my opinion, a good way to get your start and see where you're going to go from there. So, speaking of taking that weird job, not just position wise, but taking jobs for credit instead of money. Have any of you done that, and what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was so I've done that a couple different times, and the way I typically phrase it is, yeah, sometimes you take the weird job. It takes a bit of experience of understanding, is it going to be worth it? Um, because sometimes, yeah, you take the weird job for the credit, not because of, it's got great pay, or maybe the pay is garbage, or maybe there is no pay, but because of the connections you get from it. Um, that happened with me. I was contacted. This was not long after I started the company or started my business. I got an email from a guy, said his name was Justin Jedlicka, better known as the Human Ken Doll. Said he was coming to Indy to undergo this surgery, wanted it documented for his portfolio. I was fully certain it was a paycheck scam because I was getting a lot of those. Dug into it. It was legit. It was essentially 3 full days of filming for $400, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and just went, this is too weird to pass up. Not to mention it was also, 2021, so there wasn't a whole lot of work going on. And $400 was $400. So I took it, and as a result, I got connected with the plastic surgeon who was doing the operation, and they have since been a recurring client, and that has paid dividends, both experientially as well as financially, all from a too complicated, underpaid job that has since, allowed me to essentially pay my mortgage. And also you get to say things like, I filmed the world's first octuple leg implant surgery, or more recently, I filmed the first iliac crest implant procedure done in the US. So you never know where the weird job may take you to more weird stuff, but, help you continue on and grow in your career.
Yeah, but also the weird stuff is sometimes interesting, and like it's fun to do things out of your comfort zone sometimes too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I'll also say, this is just something rolling around in my brain during this conversation, but it's important to talk to everybody on set. Know everybody's name. Talk to everybody, because that's also how you find out that, oh, I don't want to be an audio person. I want to be a camera person, that kind of thing. Also, sometimes you just fall into things. Like, I never thought that I would be a stage manager for corporate events, but here I am, stage managing for Microsoft SLT stuff. But, sometimes you do things for the money, and also sometimes you do things because you like the people that are working on the set. Not everything has to be interesting, and not everything has to be something you actually want to do. But if it's worth it, if like you like the people that you're working with. I have done like short films for free for people that I really, really like working with just because I like working with them. So I guess that's another thing, back to your question, doing things for free. I didn't do any free stuff when I was starting out in like after graduation. I only recently started doing free stuff because I like a lot of people and they're asking me to help out. And I'm like, sure.
The only free stuff I do is for clients that pay me a lot of money, and that I'll do stuff for their personal families, like family photos, because I don't do any personal work anymore. But yeah, in high school, the one thing I knew I didn't want to do was work in the medical field. And now I spend more time in a hospital than I do anywhere else because hospitals aren't going out of business. They are fairly lucrative, especially in a town like ours where there's only one. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call it the weird job. It is a place I never thought I was going to be, and they are the most organized group of people I work with, and I love working with them. And that's the only reason I go back, is because it's a awesome group of people.
We love organized clients.
Yeah.
Wait,
Absolutely.
those exist?
Only very rarely. But we love it when we find it.
Absolutely. It is very much appreciated.
Yeah.
So how would one go about when it comes to estimates and proposals and things like that, when you get to that level where, you know, Adam, Katie, Nicole, I'm sure you've done it too, where you're not being told, okay, we'll give you $200 for a day. How do you go about building out an estimate or a proposal that doesn't seem insane to the client, but also doesn't leave you needing to get another job while you're at the current job?
Yeah, and that was one of my suggested topics to discuss, was proposals. I also teach video, and it's definitely one that I spend a lot of time talking about. For me, I am at the point after doing this for 10 years, there is no, hey, we'll give you $400 a day. That's not an option in my world. No, here's my rate. Not to say I haven't taken that before by any means. I've definitely had a couple of good gigs that I've gotten with, hey, we pay you $1,000 for every time you do this. And it's like, okay. And you figured out that it's easy work, and sure, that works for a little while. And again, just kind of get the portfolio in the new area. I think a lot of this is based on like, are you from where you're working? Have you been where I think that is so much, because that's my fear of moving, is like, I don't want to start over. I don't want to take those crummy $400 3-day jobs. Yeah. So I'm a proposal based situation only. And every single quote I make is custom, every single one. I have some base hourly rates for conversation starters, and I figure those out. And I have some verbiage, with all of us video editing, if editing is something you're doing, that is the place I hear people get burned the most with what they're proposing versus what they're changing. And that is something that you just have to strategically word in your estimates. This is based on the current scope that we know of at this time, as of 9/18/2024 at 5:21 p.m. in the afternoon, type of thing. And this is only valid for 30 minutes, essentially, until you change the plan, and just keeping them in the loop. And it's so, so hard to give updates on pricing, and to also swallow when you have just flat out underbid a project. But you figure it out, and you use that proposal for the next time, and you add more hours. I used to, I can do a project in 7.5 hours, and 43 hours later, we still weren't done. So yeah. And that's just for me, that's just so custom based on which job's which. But I just wanted to bring that up to hear also what you guys say about proposals, because I can always learn from others too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm similar boat to you. It's rare, we have someone come and saying, "Hey, we have this project idea. Can you do it for $1,000?" Not really at that tier anymore, thankfully. I do have clients that come, they do have a budget or budget range in mind, and based on that, we have the conversation of, is that even a feasible option for us? Most of the time, I'm able to find something that can work for the client. But, there have been a couple of times where I've had to come back to a client and say, unfortunately, based on our rates and knowing what this kind of project is going to entail, that rate is not commensurate with the labor necessary. But if we're just building out a straight up proposal, if it's an RFP or RFQ or what have you, same thing. We have day rates. We essentially base everything off of a minimum 10-hour day, depending on what the project is. Scale it from that based on crew and gear. And 9 times out of 10, I always come into the proposal and say, this is our estimate. This is scalable. Depending on once they start seeing what are we coming in with, what do they actually feel is 100% necessary from the final product. Because Katie, Nicole, both of you, I'm sure, you have clients come in and they have really big ideas that are great in theory, but then you have to break it to them how much that would actually cost. So you have to help them temper their expectations. So yeah, for me, the proposal is essentially coming in saying, I understand this is what you want. This is how much this is going to cost. That being said, if this does not fit within what you're looking for, we are always happy to talk, find a solution that is amenable to all parties involved. Whether that's changing the scope of work or, cutting back a couple things here, but still making sure that the budget is something that fits with the labor that is still involved.
I love the scalable. I usually say, here's the moon, but we can always come back a little closer to Earth or, something like that if we need to. So scalable is a little more professional.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned talking about scope of work changes, because my dad's a project manager, and so a lot of my paperwork and everything I put through him first when I was starting, and he's always telling me about make sure that you mark down this is what this is. If it's going to change, there has to be a scope of work change, and then all the requisite changes to budgets and timelines and what have you.
Mine's an architect, so yeah, same thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Scope changes are so
just lovely. Protect yourself. Just have some kind of backup in case there's 13 amendments to the project, and yeah.
I guess that would be my tack onto the proposal then is paperwork. Paperwork is your friend. As much as it's a headache, it will cover your butt.
Another thing on that, so have everything in writing. If you talk to somebody on the phone, if you have a conversation on the phone with a client, you type up a summary of that phone call and send it to them, because that's covering your butt in the long run. If something happens and you're like, no, we talked about this is what we said, and you just show them that email and you're like,
Yep, 100%. I've had clients call me. We talk through a project. I'll often be on the road from another project. And I'll say, "This is all great. Can you shoot me an email, and we'll put this all together." So that way they have sent something in writing. Just make sure that there's always a paper trail.
Absolutely.
One way or
even
the
if
other.
it's in text.
Because just something to show that this was all stated, so that because I got burned. You learn from getting burned.
Yeah.
I did a project, was they were way too, I can't think of the word. They crammed way too much into one day, and so I had to fight with them for overtime pay because it went from being a 10-hour day to a 14-hour day. And they tried to do well, we did a shorter day the day before, so can that roll over to today? No. And I didn't have that in writing, but so now I do. Now I have it very explicit in all my contracts. A day is a day. If you go early one day, that does not roll over to your next day.
Yeah. Contract gets longer the longer you do this, is what I find.
Yeah, unfortunately. Thankfully, I sent them all through, Acrobat, so they're at least electronic. I'm not killing the trees for it, but
yeah. I'm in a weird space where I'm not, my direct clients aren't clients. My direct clients are production agencies and companies. So I don't produce for my direct clients. I produce for the clients of my direct clients. And so I don't do, or I haven't come into the position of putting together my own proposals. I have once, but they didn't like it, so I did not get that. So basically, I tell them my rate, and then if they can't pay it, we negotiate, or I say, I'm not going to do this. But mostly, the clients that I work with, the clients of my clients, if you will, I like take a project from their idea inception all the way to final delivery with them. And so I put together the budget estimate, I put together the SAL, or the statement of work. And you need to be so tedious about it, because they will try to get more. They will try to get more from you. And you really just need to put your foot down a lot of times. If it's way over scope. And then you have to be very, very diligent in if something is going to go over the budget. Communication is everything. You have to, every step of the way, talk to the client and be like, so if this is what you want, this is how much budget we're going to need to do that. And so are you okay with changing the scope? And so sometimes I've done 5 change of scopes for some clients. So I'm like, all right, well, this is fine. But sometimes that's what you got to do. It is a lot of paperwork, but paperwork is important.
So we've talked about kind of working for yourself and then working for production companies. What would you say the biggest kind of difference that you've seen when it comes to that kind of work between the two?
For me, I think a lot of the stuff that's like that I do for myself is by myself. What do you mean by that? What have I mentioned?
Like working for the client of someone that you're working for. So
Yeah.
like kind of representing yourself. So like Adam and Katie kind of having their own businesses and doing that kind of thing, as opposed to going out and being hired by TLC to do like production assistant work. So it's kind of the differences that you see between working for the network and working for your own company.
I mean, I mostly work for other companies. I rarely work for myself, except I'm starting to do that now, and I'm learning a lot.
I can chime in just a little bit if it's helpful. Maybe it'll spark something.
Yeah, totally.
I don't work for other production companies. I'm my own employer, and I like it that way. So I have done assistant gigs and shot for clients of clients, and it's not my cup of tea. And I think there's people who can do that well. But I actually don't think that there's a ton of people that do both. I think that there is a type of person who likes to run their own show, and then there's a person who likes to be delegated to. There's a person who likes having control of their bookkeeping and their finance and their proposals and their estimates and the money coming in and the money going out. And for lack of better words, the security, which is where I am. Like, I like to see those books through the rest of the year and know that we could have another COVID tomorrow and we're good until March. And then there is the person that I am not, because it doesn't fit my personality, who's just like waiting for the phone to ring from said production company to show up wherever they tell you to show up, right? Excuse me. And so I quickly discovered that was not me. So that for me, that was like a very fast. We get subcontract opportunities out here for X Games. Yeah, no, I have no desire to go stand in the cold for $150 for 4 days. Like, I don't care. I don't care if every celebrity is there. I just don't care. But that's what I found about me. And that's not, I would say, like the popular choice either. Like, my students are always like, I want to go work in the big city. I want to go work for the big production companies. And that is super cool. And that is its own grind. Each have their own pros and cons. So that's my 2 cents on it.
I've actually found, at least in the Indiana market, I don't know how it might differ in other certain markets. Um, it is rare that you will find a production company that has salaried positions. Almost every production company in Indy, every position except for the person running it is subcontracted. Every single one. The exceptions to that are the large ones like Bayonet. Bayonet has multiple salaried positions. If you're looking for an actual salaried position in media production in Indy, you're working with a marketing agency or a PR firm. So, that applies to me too. Every time I have a job, everyone who's working for me, they're all subcontracted, which I think is good because, like we were saying with proposals, it makes every job scalable. It means you don't have to come into the project and say, okay, if we're going to do this, doesn't matter what you want, the minimum has to be 6 figures. We can come in and say, okay, we can do this with a 3-person crew. We'll get you an excellent product, and we can do it for, X, whatever that is. That said, it also means that I bounce between either working with the end client directly or working with the marketing agencies. And I see pros and cons to both. With a marketing agency, you're a little tighter on the budget, if you will, because obviously they need to make their cut, whatever that may be. On the plus side, they're the one, for lack of a better term, wrangling the client. They get to have all the conversations, the good ones and the bad ones. You don't have to deal with that. You just have to make the product. That's been like the main difference I've seen. And I'm personally comfortable with either. Because I think it helps. You can head off a lot of issues if you're working with the end client directly, if you have very clear communication in the negotiation phase, in your pre-production phase, when you're putting your proposal and your scopes of work together.
Those are awesome
Okay.
points. Super awesome points.
I'm starting to understand the question. I don't know how, this is just how it works for me. I'm the subcontractor, but I'm still working with the end client from the beginning. So I like take contracts with agencies, we'll call them, who then have clients. So Seattle is so reliant on the tech industry because we've got Microsoft, we've got Amazon, we've got Meta, we've got Google, it's all out here. And so we've got Boeing. I'm sure we have other things.
Are you bragging about Boeing? Just checking.
No.
Just checking.
Complete brag. Missing some parts.
And they hire out agencies and production companies to produce video for them. And so then those companies come to me and ask me, will you take a 2-3 month contract with us and produce these projects? And I'm like, yes, I will. So I guess it's kind of both. And then there's the other end of what I do, which is a lot of day playing right now with stage managing. And so that is the stuff where they're just like, I get a call sheet at like 7 p.m. and they're like, show up at 6 a.m. And I'm like, cool.
I think this is cool. This just shows you how different freelance is, like not only from market to market, but just job to job. Like that doesn't exist where I am, we have like 2 marketing firms here. firms, aka like somebody like me running a
Yeah.
marketing firm. So I just think that's really, just fascinating how we all perceive like options of freelance and how different the term freelance is.
Yeah. There's so much to it. Like I know a lot of people, especially in college, they're like, I want to be a director. I want to be a DP. And that's great, but there's also so many other options and things to do. You don't have to be a script writer. You don't have to be the thing that you think is video. Like you can be a food stylist.
And that's what freelance is so fun for,
Yeah.
is you don't have to do the same thing every day. You're not a salaried employee who's expected to show up and do these 6 things every day. And
Mhm.
it's also, I don't think it's for the person who likes a lot of structure. You have to be ready for the call sheet at 7 p.m. to go in the next morning. You have to be ready to give up your morning workout. You have to be ready to skip, you know what I mean, the coffee shop not to be open. You got to be ready to
Yeah.
work Saturday, Sunday, but then not work Monday through Friday or what, right? Like
Yeah.
I've got so many friends who are like, how do you know where you're supposed to be when? But doesn't bother me. You get used to it. So I think
Nah,
that's just
it's
super
kind of
important.
fun.
If you're the person that likes your classes right now to be 8 a.m. and you're done by noon so that you can have lunch by 12:30 and dinner at 5:30, like freelance is probably not going to be for you. But I don't know. People change.
Well, and I think freelance is great because, like you were saying, every job's different, and you get the opportunity, or you have the opportunity to work so many different departments. But I think in the end, it makes you better at whatever your specific role is if you find a role that like fits you. I
Mhm.
think personally, I'm a better director because I have such a heavy background in editing. So I already know when I'm prepping to direct, I'm already seeing how is everything going to cut together in my head.
Mhm.
I'm good at producing because I understand how to communicate with each department because I've worked in various departments. And I
Exactly.
think that's one of the biggest things is you learn how to communicate with every department because each one's going to have something different they need to know or, their own jargon or what have you.
Mhm. I've had so many people, so many of my editors tell me that they like working with me simply because I understand editing. I started out as an editor, and they're like, it's so easy to work with you because you understand my job. And I'm like, yes, I understand your job. I understand how long it's going to take you to do your job.
Yeah. And I think also being able to say, this isn't my strength. This is where, if once you have that budget and
Mhm.
capability, this is where I outsource.
Yeah.
This is what I send off. Again, the less you outsource, right? Like it's also easy to get carried away with that. And then you're like, oh, cool, my net is $5 on this project or negative $5. So I think that's also important of that budget and planning for time. And I got to a point this summer, I was bidding more hours out than existed in a week. So,
Mhm.
So when it comes to that, bidding out more hours than there are in a week, how do you find that work-life balance in this kind of realm?
I should not answer this question.
I can kind of chime in. So I get the lovely dangerous part of that my office is in my house. So I don't have a concrete building, like different building that separates what is work, what is life. Um, I do have the nice part of my office is its own room. It's not sitting in my living room. So it does separate it in that regards. I think it's just making a point of, what hours fit your personal lifestyle for your own mental and physical health, because this is a mentally and emotionally stressful industry, regardless of what you do. So you have to keep on top of that. Um, but it is taking the time to recognize when do you need to find a cutoff point of I have to stop tonight because I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to, pet my dog. I need to do something that makes me a human and not just a working drone. Because if you do that, you will crash and burn, and that is going to be very, very hard to recover from if even possible. I know plenty of people who straight out of college they went into doing went into production. They chose a field they thought they'd like. They got burnt out within a year, and they've not touched any kind of media production since because it just completely burned them out. So for me, I might work super late or I start later in the day, what have you, if I'm if I'm in post production. But I essentially make a cutoff of, okay, it's like 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'm done for the night. I'm gonna go decompress, be human, even if it's only for 3 or 4 hours. And I'll pick it up again tomorrow. It's not easy because it depends on the position, it depends on what you're doing, it depends on what suits you and your own personal lifestyle. I'm a night owl, so I have plenty of times where it's like, okay, I'll take a break. If it's a big project, I'll work a chunk of the day, take a break, eat dinner, watch some TV, 9 o'clock, and I could knock out another 3 or 4 hours of editing, and then go to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning.
I'm still working on work-life balance, man. I think we all are. I think it's a constant battle and a constant journey. But I don't know if I have anything unique to say here, but it is important to have a cutoff time, because you can get up, because my office is also in my house. You can just get into a cycle of working until 7 or 8 p.m. And it's like, that's what I was doing when I was full-time and couldn't do this anymore. So I probably shouldn't do that, because then I will just feel the same way that I did when I was salaried. So yeah, make sure to eat meals, because don't work through lunch. Take your lunch. That's really important.
Would you guys agree that being freelance almost requires more, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh no, I can't think of the word. Lack of a better term, self-regulation than a traditional 9 to 5.
Obedience.
Oh yeah.
But
I
one
don't
of
know.
the big
Obedience
things is
might.
learning when to say no too.
Mm,
When like when I was out in California, I was a field manager for a big show, and I had to make sure people had the right amount of turnaround, because you had certain people that didn't want to stop. And we had to tell them, okay, you're done because we need you here tomorrow. And the way that this has been going on, like you have to take breaks, you have to stop. Like, this is not life or death. As much as people think that it is, it's not.
Can you do
and
that for me, like on a regular basis? Can you like be that person for me? Like,
yeah,
stop.
I was, yes, I had certain people that didn't, they wanted to do meal penalties and stuff like that, and they wanted people to keep working through. And I said, no, that's not cool. We're doing these shows for 5 to 6 months out of the year. We're taking a month break and then we're doing them again. And we don't need to burn somebody out on the very first series when we have 2 more to go. And so that's why I kind of stopped doing it in the first place. And now I am a firefighter EMT here in Indiana. I work 10, 24-hour shifts out of the month, and then I do freelance work outside of that. So it's weird that I moved from somewhere where I'm like, it's not life or death, to somewhere where it is life or death. But, you still get to pick and choose what you're doing, and you get that realization that, like, okay, we don't need to be yelling at each other to get this done. Like, this is a project. This is something that can get done, later. And if you didn't trust me to get it done, and if you chose me for a reason, and if you don't think that I can get this work done, then you shouldn't have chosen me in the first place. So, and that was another thing that I had to talk to people about, Um, you know, when I got to that managerial role, I had people above me coming at me and being like, hey, why are you doing this? Hey, why are you doing that? Nitpicking kind of everything that I did. And it was like, well, if you didn't trust me to have this role, then why'd you put me in it in the first place? I don't want to be your little puppet the entire time when you're only overseeing a couple of people and I'm overseeing 30 plus production assistants, and I need to make sure that they're all okay and they all make it at home okay and they all get to come here and have a good time tomorrow. So yeah, finding that work-life balance, while it can be hard sometimes, you really just got to figure out that you can do it. It can be done, and you just got to find that way to turn things off. And working for yourself, you can kind of find that time of like, okay, after 5 o'clock, I'm done. Like, you can't talk to me anymore after 5 o'clock. If it's that big of a deal, you can talk to me at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So
yeah,
my 2
that's
cents.
Oh, sorry.
that's something that I will say. It's really nice to be able to have boundaries. Because working a salaried job, you're not allowed to have boundaries as a producer. I'll tell you that right now. I'm sure not every company is that way, but at both of the companies that I've worked at as a salaried employer or employee, I basically was not allowed to have boundaries. If they emailed me at 8 p.m., I had to answer or they would not be happy with me. So freelance is great if you want to have boundaries because you can actually enforce them, and enforce them from the jump, like from the outset of your contract. Absolutely. Be like, this is set the precedent of what they should expect from you. So that there isn't a precedent later on when they come back for another contract to be like, oh, she'll work until 8 p.m. It's fine. You know?
This is a big struggle in my life. So I don't have a whole lot of positive things to say, but it is something I'm really trying hard to get better at, more than just other than learning Da Vinci. It's probably the second most thing I'm putting effort into right now. So one actually like a physical tool that has helped me is to actually clock my hours.
Oh, that's good. What do you use?
I use QuickBooks because that's where my bookkeeping is done, and they have free. It's very basic, and you can like I have a project number for every single job that I get, and so I attach the hours to it. It's amazing for billing too, right? Like,
for sure.
Actually, even if you quoted something different, you're like, cool, underestimated that one by 17 hours or whatever it is. But then at the end of the week, the thing that's been happening is I'm realizing how much time I'm spending on like management and not billable hours. And, I'm realizing I got to like tighten that stuff up. And then secondary, I'm seeing how many hours I'm actually working a week. And when it's down on paper, it makes you a little more tired. It makes you be like, I think I'm good.
Yeah.
So that's like a tool that I adopted back in May. Can't say that I've made a lot of drastic changes, but that's next year's resolution.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a tool that I do think helps because it's a visual. It's a visual right there. And like to your point, okay, I did the job where I was working 75 hours. Am I okay with that? Maybe this week I am because I'm the one taking the paycheck, but maybe next week I'm not because whatever the reason, right? So anyway, just wanted to share the physical tool of clocking hours, I think is something helpful there.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
To a normal person.
Because you may not have to, you're your own CEO. You may not have to clock hours for your employer, but you are your employer. So it's important to clock your hours to see where your capacity is at. Are you over capacity? Are you working too much? Then you're like, yeah, maybe I am working too much. Maybe I should dial this back a little bit.
It's also helpful in scaling business, in deciding like right now, just personally, I'm spending too many hours on new business. Well, can you really spend too many hours on new business Well, I had to hire someone to start doing the editing so that I can continue the new business, right? So it was also really helpful in that I've done this for 10 years, and 4 months ago I started clocking actual hours and not just jotting them down on an envelope, as I'm working. So
Perfect.
and also Nathan, my husband's a firefighter, which is something that works really well for a freelancer. So when in doubt, just marry a firefighter, because when they have time off, they can help you. And it also is really great because I know the Indiana schedule is a little different, but he's 2 on 4 off. So his week is different. His week like rotates, right? Every week. So like some days I take a Monday off, and I can see that, I can see his schedule for 5 years if I want to. And I can be like, okay, on March 15th of 2025, I'm taking the day off because he's off and we're going to go do this. So
it gets switched schedules for no reason.
Yeah, exactly. So get promoted, switch schedules. That happened this year. Had the whole life planned. And anyway, so that also is helpful of just like, if you have a spouse or someone or friends, like out here, nobody loves to have weekends off because that's when all the tourists and everybody kind of comes out, right? So we actually prefer to have like a Monday, Tuesday off, and my husband's schedule works really complementary to that because we can kind of find those days, and that's where it's just customized to your life. But it is funny, freelancers and firefighters work real well together.
I love that.
Well, on that note, I think we're about to wrap it up. So if any of you guys have anything that you want to kind of say before we head out, I know that we wanted to talk about advertising or making your kit or taxes and bookkeeping. If there's anything within those realms that you want to kind of hit on before we head out, feel free. If you're like, no, I'm done, peace out, then you don't have to say anything and you can just say bye and thanks for having me. That's totally fine. So whatever you want to say, we'll just go one at a time and just wrap it up.
Bye, and thanks for having me. I gotta go back to work. It's 5:55 in Colorado. Still daylight out.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you first.
I was gonna say it's important to diversify your skill set as well. Katie's learning Da Vinci. Way to go. Very cool. I'm learning how to write grants to fund short films right now. And I'm like, I've never written a grant in my life, but here we go. Let's figure out how to do it. Just kind of diversify your skill set so that you can do multiple things. I know a lot of people will say it's important to specialize, and it is. Like, have a specialty, but also be able to do other things well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Nicole just said. It's important to be able, particularly when you're first starting out, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have to be a one-man band or one-person band, what have you. You're going to have to do multiple things by yourself when you're freelancing. And then from that, you can figure out what you want to specialize in. You can build your kit out from there. When you're starting out, you're not going to be dropping tens of thousands of dollars on the latest and greatest gear, because highly unlikely you're going to be able to afford it. But it also doesn't make sense. You're not going to be getting those kind of jobs yet because you don't have the experience or the reputation for it. So I think my advice is take the time. Talk with people who have been in your local market or your local industry longer than you have, because they will help you to connect with more people. They will help you get more jobs, help you understand what you should be charging for your skill set or for the job in question, considering those rates vary by market and skill level and gear brought in. I think it all just does come back to the networking part. Get to know the people in your industry. Become friends with some of them. Unless you don't want to. If it's purely a professional thing, great. But if you can make friends, it does make the job easier. That is one part of the work-life balance. If the people you work with a lot are your friends, it makes the work-life balance much easier because you get to, while still being professional, you can still have fun on the job. You get some of that, human interaction that is a little past just, hi, fellow employee, let's get this job done so I can go home. Um, yeah, it just comes back to finding and building and connecting with your local industry, your local community.
Yeah, to build off that, and then I'll sign off here. But uh, make friends with other freelancers. They're going to be the ones who refer you for things for their clients that you don't like. Say they've done a project with this other company and they need a producer. They'll be like, hey, this girl or person is really, really good at this. Check them out.
They'll also cover you when you're throwing up and you can't get to the job, but
There we go.
you gotta be there.
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
when you're recovering from spinal surgery and can't leave the house.
Oof. Yeah, that'll happen too.
Hopefully
Try not
not.
to need
It's
spinal surgery though.
it's not fun. It's not fun.
One more thing about taxes. Keep a spreadsheet. Keep every single receipt, every single one. Find an accountant. And that's the last advice I've got.
That's all I was going to end with too. If you don't pay for anything else, save a little bit to hire the accountant or the bookkeeper or whatever and pay the quarterly taxes. Because one year you're going to make 5 times more than you did last year, and you're going to owe a lot of money. And you're not going to know how much, and that person can just keep you in the safe zone. And it is such a peace of mind. I like the bookkeeper side. I like the cash flow. And for those who don't know what cash flow is, it is literally a month by month. It can even be more detailed than that, but it is, when will my money run out based on my projected jobs that I have contracted, proposed, declined right now, right? So based on these contracts signed, I can feed my family until March. So yeah, that was the only last thing I was going to say is save that money for whoever it is in your life. I am super lucky. My mom's bookkeeper. So I just buy her a real nice Christmas gift. That's the networking thing too, right? Like maybe
Absolutely.
you can offer the video or photo service as a trade to somebody who could, help you with that at least to get started. Because that's a place, I think that's really daunting for new people in freelance. Maybe not for those of us that have had contract jobs in our life outside of college, but coming out of college, it's definitely the one that I think is the most I have to do what? So.
And making sure that you find somebody that can do your taxes that actually knows how to do taxes for somebody that does freelance work, because you'd be surprised with how many people are like, yes, I'll do your taxes. And then you give them all these different things and they're like, okay, this is too much. Yeah. And then they either don't do it right or they charge you a lot of money to get them done. So
3 W-2s and 12 W-9s and yeah.
Throw in the random thing that comes in from California where they've already taken out the taxes for you. And
yeah, that's a fun one here. We don't have state taxes, but if you work for a company in California, they'll automatically take it out. But if you work for that company while you're in Seattle, you don't actually have to pay the California taxes because you did all of your work in Washington. So it can get a little weird, but your accountant will know those intricacies.
You're a good accountant.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
Get a CPA. Get a CPA. Just.
Well, Adam, Nicole, Katie, thank you very much for joining us for this episode. I think we've had a really good conversation and learned some new things, and everybody that's been watching hopefully has learned some new things and has some takeaways too. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your night, and we'll talk to you again later.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.